When I met Lily, I felt like I had finally found my person. I'm 30 years old and she's 28. We've been together for 3 years and recently I asked her to marry me. She said yes without hesitation, and for a moment it felt like everything in my life was falling into place. Lily is the kindest, most intelligent woman I have ever met. She's the type of person who lights up a room without even trying. She's supportive, thoughtful, and makes even the most mundane moments feel special. I couldn't have asked for a better partner, but from the very start there was one glaring issue. Her parents. They never liked me. I could see it in the way they looked at me, the way they spoke to me, the way they always had a way of making me feel like I didn't belong. They came from money, old money, the kind of wealth that comes with country clubs and high society events. I, on the other hand, grew up in a working class family. I have a good job, a stable income, and I take care of myself, but in their eyes, I would never be enough. Her father especially is overbearing. He is the type of man who expects things to go his way simply because he has money and influence. He's well connected, always making deals, always in control. He never says outright that he disapproves of me, but it's in the little things, pointed comments, backhanded compliments, the way he always finds a way to steer conversations toward finances, status, and proper life choices. Her mother is subtler but no less judgmental. She smiles, she plays nice, but every so often, she'll slip in a comment about how Lily deserves the best, about how she should think about her future carefully. For the most part, Lily ignored it. She loves her family, but she has always been independent. She told me more than once that she didn't care what they thought, that our relationship was about us, not them. I believed her. I trusted her. Then, a few months before the wedding, they introduced us to Daniel. Daniel is 35, he's successful, charming, and well-spoken. He's the type of man who walks into a room and owns it without even trying. He is, of course, from a wealthy family. The first time we met, it was at one of her parents' gatherings. They called him an old family friend who was just passing through town. It didn't take long for me to realize he wasn't just some casual acquaintance. The way her parents spoke about him, the way they went out of their way to include him in conversations, to praise his accomplishments, to make sure he was always sitting near Lily, it was obvious. At first I brushed it off. It was annoying, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of nothing. Then, Daniel started showing up everywhere. If we went to a family dinner, he was there. If her parents planned a weekend outing, Daniel was invited. It reached a point where it felt intentional, like they were forcing him into our lives. Daniel wasn't just friendly, he was overly friendly with Lily. He always found a reason to talk to her, to pull her aside, to share inside jokes from years ago that I wasn't a part of. I noticed the way he looked at her, the way he placed his hand on her arm when he spoke to her, the way he was always there, always available. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to get close to her. Lily didn't seem to notice. When I brought it up, she told me I was overreacting. She told me Daniel was just being nice, that I was imagining things. I let it go, but something about the whole situation didn't sit right with me. Then, I ran into Daniel at a coffee shop. Alone, I wasn't expecting to see him there, and he acted like it was a casual coincidence. He greeted me like an old friend, but there was something smug about his tone. He asked questions, personal ones. He wanted to know about my job, my future plans, what I was bringing to the table. It wasn't curiosity, it was something else, something calculated. The conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. Later, at another family dinner, Lily's mother made an offhand comment. She laughed and said something about how Lily had always been close to Daniel, how they would have made such a perfect couple if things had worked out differently. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just in my head. Her parents were pushing for something. They were trying to plant a seed. And then, out of nowhere, Lily changed. She started becoming distant. She wasn't as affectionate, wasn't as present. When I asked her what was wrong, she told me she was just stressed. But it wasn't just stress. She started questioning things, our relationship, our engagement. She started saying things like she wasn't sure if we were meant to be, that she needed time to think. I had no idea where this was coming from. We had been solid. We had been happy. And then, suddenly, she was pulling away. Then, one night, it all came out. She broke down. She told me she had been rethinking everything, that she had started realizing things about us, about what she wanted in life. The way she spoke, the words she used, it didn't sound like her. It sounded like someone had been whispering in her ear, planting doubts. And then, a friend of mine, someone who moves in the same social circles as her parents, reached out. They told me they had overheard something at a party. Her parents had been scheming behind my back. They had been talking to Daniel, trying to get him closer to Lily. And Daniel, he wasn't just some family friend. They wanted him to replace me. I confronted Lily that same night. I didn't wait. The moment I walked through the door, I told her what I had heard. Her parents had been plotting against me. Daniel was never just a friend. They had been pushing him into her life, hoping she would leave me for him. At first, she denied it. She looked confused, even offended, like she couldn't believe I would say something like that. But when I pressed further, when I told her exactly what I had heard, something shifted. Her face fell. She tried to say it wasn't like that I didn't understand, but I wasn't backing down. Then, the truth came out. She admitted that her parents had been pressuring her for weeks. At first, she ignored them, but their constant doubts and subtle manipulations made her question things she had never worried about before. She hadn't wanted to believe them, but over time, their words took root. They had been filling her head with doubts, making her question everything. And Daniel, they had been pushing him as the better option. Someone from their world, someone they approved of. She swore she hadn't done anything. She said she had never cheated, never crossed any lines. But she had listened to them. She had let their words get to her. She had started to believe that maybe they were right. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there trying to process everything. Then, my phone buzzed. It was my friend, the one who had overheard the conversation at the party. He had more information. I stepped outside to take the call. What he told me changed everything. Daniel wasn't just a family friend. He wasn't just some guy from their social circle. He was an actor, hired, paid, a plant. My friend had dug into his background. He wasn't from the same wealthy circles as Lily's parents had claimed. He had done some minor acting work, small roles, nothing major, but he had enough charm, enough polish to play the part. And then came the proof. My friend had gotten screenshots, text messages between Lily's parents and Daniel, instructions, payments, details about how to get close to Lily, how to befriend her, how to subtly make her question our relationship. They had planned everything, every interaction, every coincidence. They had orchestrated it all. I sent the screenshots to Lily. She saw them. She read every single message. She broke down. She wasn't just upset, she was horrified. She had let herself be manipulated. She had let her parents control her without even realizing it. She had nearly thrown away our relationship because of their lies. I told her I needed to talk to her parents. I needed to hear it from them. She didn't try to stop me. The next day, I went straight to their house. They were expecting me. They didn't even look surprised. They didn't deny anything. They didn't even try to justify it with lies. They admitted to everything. They said it was a test. They wanted to see if our relationship was strong enough, if I could handle their world. They claimed they were only looking out for Lily's future, that it was for her own good. I asked if they even cared how much they had hurt their own daughter. They brushed it off. They said she would get over it, that she was emotional, that one day she would understand. I left. I didn't argue. There was nothing to argue about. On my way home, I made one more call to Daniel. I needed to hear his side. He answered. He didn't try to deny anything either. He admitted it outright. He had been paid well to come into our lives and make Lily question everything. He wasn't even ashamed of it. He said it was just a job, that he had no real interest in Lily, that he was just playing a role. I hung up. When I got back to our apartment, Lily was still crying. She said she felt disgusting, humiliated. She couldn't believe she had ever let herself be influenced like that. She apologized over and over again, saying she didn't know how to fix this. I told her the truth. There was only one way to fix it. She had to cut them off. Completely. She hesitated. Not because she wanted to defend them, not because she thought they were right, but because they were her parents. Cutting them off wasn't just about refusing to see them. It meant losing everything that came with them. The family gatherings, the connections, the world she had grown up in. I told her she had to make a choice. The fallout started immediately. Word spread fast. Their social circle caught wind of what had happened. People started talking. Their perfect image started to crack. Her parents called her, demanding to know what she was saying to people. They weren't apologizing. They weren't even trying to make things right. They were furious that they were being made to look bad. Lily didn't answer. Then the final blow. They showed up at our apartment, not to apologize, not to make amends, but to tell her she was making a mistake, that she was throwing away everything they had built for her. She closed the door in their faces. She chose me. Lily's parents did not take her decision well. After she shut the door on them, they didn't just back off. They doubled down. The very next morning, messages started pouring in. Her extended family, mutual friends, even some acquaintances from her parents' social circle. The narrative was clear. I was the manipulator. According to them, I had brainwashed Lily, turned her against them, and was actively isolating her from the people who truly loved her. It didn't stop at words. Her parents called everyone they could, spinning the story to make themselves look like the victims. They painted me as a jealous, controlling fiancé who had forced Lily to cut ties with her family. They claimed I had been influencing her for years, keeping her away from them, and now, I had finally succeeded in taking her away completely. The damage control was relentless. Her parents hosted a gathering, inviting their closest friends and family. Lily and I were obviously not included. At that event, they made sure to talk about how concerned they were for their daughter. They presented themselves as heartbroken parents who just wanted the best for her. But she had fallen under the influence of the wrong person. But it didn't go as planned. By this point, word had already spread about the truth. People had heard different versions of the story, and cracks were forming in their carefully curated image. A few of their friends started questioning their version of events. Some even reached out to Lily privately, asking if she was okay. Then, everything exploded. Our mutual friend, the same one who had originally overheard their plan, had had enough. He decided to expose everything. He took the text messages he had found between Lily's parents and Daniel and leaked them into the extended family's group chat. No explanations, no commentary, just raw evidence of their scheme. The reaction was immediate. Some of her family members, the ones who had been convinced that I was the manipulator, immediately went silent. Others demanded an explanation from her parents. The messages were undeniable. They showed the money transfers, the step-by-step instructions given to Daniel, even messages where they outright said they needed to push Lily in the right direction before it was too late. Lily's parents didn't respond in the chat. Instead, they tried to do damage control in private, calling up family members one by one trying to justify their actions. But the lies had already crumbled. Their influence took a major hit. People who had always admired and respected them were now keeping their distance. Lily, meanwhile, was devastated. This wasn't just about their betrayal anymore. It was about the fact that they valued their own reputation more than their own daughter's happiness. Even after being exposed, they didn't try to fix things with her. They didn't apologize. They just wanted to save face. And then, they made one last desperate attempt. Their efforts had already backfired publicly, but they still clung to the hope that they could regain control over Lily. They sent Lily a message, carefully worded, trying to sound remorseful. They claimed they were sorry for getting too involved. They admitted they may have overstepped, but their apology was empty. It wasn't about how they hurt her. It was about how they were misunderstood. They wanted to sweep it under the rug. They expected her to just move on. I didn't let that happen. I told Lily that if we moved forward with our wedding, they would not be involved. No invitations, no reconciliation, no compromises. She hesitated, not because she wanted them back in her life, but because it was a painful realization. Her own parents would not be at her wedding. It was a decision she had to make, and she knew it was the right one. But her parents weren't done. A few days later, they made their final move. They invited her to meet them, alone. She agreed. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I understood why she needed to go. When she came back, she told me everything. They had made her an offer. Her trust fund reinstated, financial stability guaranteed, on the condition that she reconsider her relationship with me. They framed it as a way to give her time to think. They told her she still had time to correct her mistake, that she could walk away from this relationship and have the life they had always planned for her. No more struggle, no more worries about financial stability. Lily didn't even entertain it. She walked out. She didn't argue. She didn't yell. She just got up and left. That was the moment it truly ended. True to their word, her parents cut her off financially. The credit cards they had always let her use, canceled. The trust fund they had dangled over her head for years, locked. They didn't just cut ties with her, they erased her, as if she had never been their daughter at all. But she stood her ground. We started fresh. We began planning our wedding on our terms. No family interference, no outside pressure, just us, moving forward. But even as we tried to put it all behind us, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't truly over. Lily's parents were not done. After their last failed attempt to buy her back with a house, they shifted tactics. They showed up unannounced at her workplace, waiting for her outside, acting like they just wanted to talk. They weren't angry anymore, at least. Not on the surface. They played the role of concerned, heartbroken parents, telling her they had only done all of this as a test. According to them, they had never really wanted her to end up with Daniel. They just wanted to make sure her love for me was strong enough. They framed it as if their manipulations were somehow noble, as if they had only done what they did to protect her. Lily didn't fall for it. She had already seen the extent of their lies, but they didn't stop there. Once the emotional appeal failed, they moved on to their next strategy, money. They told her that if she called off the wedding, they would reinstate her inheritance. She would get her financial support back, her trust fund, her lifestyle. It was all still there, waiting for her. She just had to think carefully about her choices. That was the breaking point. She didn't hold back. She let them know, in no uncertain terms, that they had permanently damaged their relationship with her, that there was no coming back from what they had done. She didn't care about their money, their approval, or their conditions. They had tried to control her entire life, and she was done with it. After that, their attitude changed again. The concern and regret vanished. Her father's expression hardened, his voice turning cold. He made it clear that if she was going to choose this path, they would no longer be involved. No financial support, no family contributions to the wedding, nothing. If she was so determined to marry a man who could not provide, then she could go ahead and struggle without their help. He didn't stop there. He turned to me, standing beside Lily, and gave me a smug look. He told me that I was making a mistake, that I wasn't a real provider, and that without their financial backing, our marriage would fall apart within a year. According to him, love alone would not be enough to keep us together. Lily didn't even flinch. She told him that we would fund our wedding ourselves, no matter how small it had to be. We didn't need their money, their approval, or their presence. If they weren't going to support us as family, then they had no place in our lives. The fallout didn't stop there. Word spread quickly among relatives. Some sided with her parents, believing we were being ungrateful and stubborn. Others were disgusted by their actions, shocked that they would go this far just to sabotage their own daughter's happiness. It became clear that their reputation within their social circle had already taken a major hit from the leaked text messages, and now they were trying to do damage control. That same evening, Lily's mother called her. This time she was crying, begging, saying that she was breaking her mother's heart, that she would regret this forever, that she was throwing away her family. It was the same manipulation, just wrapped in a different tone. But Lily had finally had enough. Without saying another word, she blocked both of her parents on her phone and social media. However, they found ways around it, using different numbers, contacting her through relatives, and even creating fake accounts to send messages. That's when things escalated publicly. The next morning, they posted a dramatic Facebook rant talking about how they had lost their daughter. They painted themselves as the victims, talking about how they had sacrificed so much for her, only to be cast aside because of a man who turned her against them. They framed it as if they had always been loving parents who were simply being pushed out by an outside force. And of course, the rumors started. Mutual friends began reaching out, some out of genuine concern, others just fishing for gossip. We started getting messages asking if it was true that I had trapped Lily, if I had manipulated her into going no contact with her parents, if I was the reason she was suddenly distancing herself from her family. It was clear that her parents had been spreading their version of events, hoping to control the narrative. At that point, I decided to consult a lawyer. It wasn't about money or revenge. It was about making sure they couldn't interfere with our wedding or try to sabotage us further. We wanted to make sure they had no legal way to cause problems for us down the line. Meanwhile, Daniel had completely disappeared from the situation. My friend who originally exposed everything told me that he had quietly distanced himself from Lily's parents. It seemed like he regretted getting involved in their mess. He hadn't reached out to Lily, hadn't tried to explain himself. He had just faded away. But Lily's parents weren't finished yet. In a last desperate move, they spread a new rumor that I had been unfaithful. We started getting more messages, people asking Lily if she was okay, if she had heard the truth about me, if she was sure she wanted to go through with the wedding. Her parents were trying one final trick, hoping to plant doubt in her mind, to make her question me, to make her hesitate. But this time, they had completely miscalculated. Instead of being shaken, Lily dismissed it immediately. She didn't even entertain the idea. She told people exactly what it was, just another lie from her parents, another desperate attempt to break us apart. And with that, they lost the last bit of power they had left. Lily's parents weren't backing down. Now that she had cut contact, they went nuclear. The story they started spreading was that she had been brainwashed. According to them, I had manipulated her into turning against them, isolating her, and forcing her to cut ties with her loving family. They went as far as to say she wasn't thinking for herself anymore, that she wasn't acting like the daughter they knew. It didn't stop at words. They started reaching out to distant relatives, people who weren't directly involved but could be used as messengers. Suddenly, Lily's phone was filled with texts from cousins, uncles, and family friends she hadn't spoken to in years, all saying the same thing. Her parents were worried about her, they were heartbroken, and she needed to come back before it was too late. It was the same manipulation, just coming from different voices. Then, they made their most desperate move yet. Lily received a call from a number claiming to be the hospital, saying her father had been admitted. Instead of rushing, she called the hospital directly, only to find out there was no record of him being there. The message begged her to come immediately. Lily froze. No matter how much her parents had hurt her, this was still her father. But something felt off. Instead of rushing to the hospital, she made a few calls. First, she called an aunt, who was still somewhat neutral in the whole mess. The response was immediate confusion. Her father wasn't in the hospital. In fact, he had been seen at a restaurant earlier that day, completely fine. It was a lie. They had faked a medical emergency just to get her to break no contact. That was the final straw. Any lingering guilt or hesitation Lily had about cutting them off completely disappeared. And the worst part, people started noticing. The more extreme their actions became, the more people in their social circle started seeing the truth. It was one thing to argue about family loyalty, but lying about a heart attack, that made even their most loyal friends start to doubt them. Their credibility was crumbling. Then, something happened that neither of us expected. Daniel reached out. After disappearing from the situation, he finally broke his silence. He messaged Lily, apologizing for everything. He admitted that her parents had paid him a large sum to seduce her, that the whole thing had been orchestrated from the start. He claimed he hadn't realized how deep it would go until it was too late. But that wasn't all. He had proof. Daniel sent us an audio recording, a conversation between him and her parents. In it, they were instructing him on exactly how to manipulate Lily, telling him what to say, how to act, and what weaknesses to play on. They even discussed how they planned to cut me out completely once he was in the picture. Lily listened to it in silence. Hearing their voices, hearing them strategizing about how to control her like a pawn, it shattered something inside her. This wasn't just about them disapproving of our relationship. This was cold, calculated manipulation. We knew this had to be exposed. We shared the recording with close family members. This wasn't about revenge, it was about making sure no one could deny what had happened. Once people heard the truth, the shift was immediate. Some relatives, the ones who had been on the fence, completely distanced themselves from her parents. Others, who had been defending them, suddenly stopped trying to contact Lily. The weight of proof was undeniable. Her parents, of course, didn't take it well. Now that they couldn't reach Lily directly, they tried a new strategy, going through others. They contacted mutual relatives, telling them to pressure Lily into stopping the lies. The messages became aggressive, almost threatening. At that point, we consulted our lawyer again. He advised us to send a formal cease and desist letter, making it clear that any further defamation or harassment would result in legal action. It was the first real legal step we had taken, but we knew it was necessary. Meanwhile, their interference started affecting our wedding plans. At first, we had still considered having a small wedding, maybe with just a few close friends and supportive family members. But with the way things were escalating, it felt risky. We started having serious discussions about eloping, just the two of us. No interference, no more stress. Then, Lily made one final decision. She blocked every single remaining relative who was siding with her parents. No more messages, no more back and forth. She cut off every last connection they had to her. For the first time in months, it felt like we could breathe. But deep down, we both knew this wasn't the end. Just when we thought things couldn't get worse, a letter arrived at our doorstep. It was from a lawyer representing Lily's parents. According to the letter, they were considering legal action against us for emotional damages. The claim was vague, full of accusations about how we had defamed them and damaged their reputation by spreading lies. Our lawyer took one look at it and dismissed it immediately. It had no legal standing. There were no grounds for a case, no actual damages, and nothing that would hold up in court. It was just another intimidation tactic, another desperate attempt to make us second-guess ourselves. But the legal threat was just the beginning. Soon after, rumors started spreading again. This time, the story they pushed was that I had completely isolated Lily from her family, that I had manipulated her into turning against them, that I was the reason she had blocked them. They painted me as some controlling, possessive partner, keeping her from the people who loved her. We started hearing from some vendors that anonymous calls were being made to discredit us. While a couple of them ignored it, we realized the interference was escalating beyond simple meddling and took precautions. The calls all followed the same script. They were told that we were unstable clients, that working with us would result in last-minute cancellations, that they should reconsider taking our business. We reached out to the vendors immediately. Most of them ignored the calls, but a few admitted they had been concerned. Someone was clearly trying to sabotage the wedding before it even happened. To be safe, we hired private security for the event. We didn't know what else her parents might try, but we weren't taking any chances. Then, they pulled something so bizarre that we almost couldn't believe it. With no warning, Lily's parents announced a family gathering on the exact same day as our wedding. They sent out invitations to extended family, urging everyone to attend their event instead. The message was clear: they were trying to steal our guests. At first we thought no one would actually fall for it, but then, we started getting messages. Some guests, especially the older ones, were confused. They didn't understand why there were two separate events. Some even asked Lily directly why she wasn't attending the family gathering. Her parents were making it sound like she was the one being unreasonable. And then came the worst part. A supposed friend, someone we had trusted, leaked our private wedding details to Lily's parents. We only found out because our wedding planner called us in a panic. Someone had attempted to cancel our reservations. The venue, the catering, the seating arrangements, someone had tried to erase everything. The only reason it didn't go through was because the planner had caught it just in time. The cancellation email had been sent from a relative's account. One of Lily's own family members had been the one to try and ruin our wedding. At that point, we had no choice. We made a last-minute decision to relocate the wedding, sharing the new location only with trusted guests through private phone calls and direct messages to ensure that no information leaked to the wrong people. We kept the new location a secret, only giving details to people we trusted completely. Then, Lily got one final call. It was from an unknown number, but we already knew who it was. Her mother's voice was full of rage, screaming about how Lily had ruined their family name, how she had humiliated them, how she was a disgrace for choosing a man over her own parents. It was the last desperate attempt to guilt her into coming back. Lily didn't say much. She listened for a few seconds, then hung up, and this time, she blocked the number permanently. With the wedding finally secured, we could finally breathe. But deep down, we knew they weren't done. We just had no idea what they would try next. A week before our wedding, we got a call from the catering company. They wanted to confirm a cancellation request made under Lily's name. The problem, we had never sent any such request. Immediately we asked for details. The The catering company forwarded the email they received, and sure enough, it had Lily's full name and even her signature, except it wasn't hers. The email address didn't match anything we had ever used, but it looked just convincing enough that, had the caterer not double-checked, the request might have gone through. We traced the email back, and it led to one of Lily's extended relatives, someone we hadn't blocked, someone we thought had been neutral in all of this. When confronted, they admitted it. They had been pressured by Lily's parents to cause small inconveniences leading up to the wedding, nothing outright destructive, just little things that would force delays or stress us out enough to reconsider the entire event. That was it. We couldn't take any more chances. We switched all our vendors to a new set of fake names and put strict verification processes in place. No changes could be made without a phone call and an in-person confirmation. Then, another warning sign. The venue called us, saying someone had phoned in, claiming to be a concerned relative. The person asked about our booking, specifically if the wedding could be postponed due to a family emergency. The venue had refused to make any changes without speaking to us, but they wanted to alert us in case it was something serious. It wasn't. We had no doubt about who was behind it. To prevent anything further, we took the last step we had been avoiding. We hired professional security. We provided them with photos of Lily's parents and a list of people who were absolutely not allowed near the venue. Then, just when we thought they were done, a friend reached out with a cryptic warning. He had overheard something at a gathering. A relative had hinted that Lily's parents had one last thing planned for the wedding day. That morning, right as we were getting ready, Lily's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her father's name at the bottom. Her mother was in the hospital. It was an emergency. She needed to come right away. Lily didn't react immediately. Instead, she messaged a cousin who was still in touch with her extended family. The cousin checked. Within minutes, the truth came back. Her mother was completely fine, at home, not in the hospital at all. Another lie. We ignored it. No response, no reaction. The wedding was happening no matter what. Then, during the ceremony, security caught something suspicious. Despite security measures, a distant cousin, who had been overlooked in our precautions, discreetly propped up their phone, recording, not just casually filming for memories, but actively live streaming before security caught them. They had been sneaky about it, keeping the phone low, pretending to be looking at messages. Security moved in fast. The cousin was escorted out immediately, their phone taken until they left the property. Despite everything, the wedding itself was perfect. The people who mattered were there. No interruptions, no disasters, just us, making our vows, surrounded by people who actually supported us. As we were leaving the venue, Lily's phone buzzed one last time. Another unknown number. One short message. "You will regret this." She deleted it, without a second thought. Returning from our honeymoon felt like stepping into a new chapter, one without stress, manipulation, or interference. For the first time in months, we felt at peace, finally free from all the chaos her parents had thrown our way. The wedding had gone perfectly, despite their best efforts to sabotage it, and we were determined to move forward with our lives. But the silence didn't last long. A few days after settling back home, a courier arrived at our door with legal papers. Lily's parents were suing us. The claim: emotional distress and defamation. We didn't even have to read past the first page before calling our lawyer. Within minutes of reviewing the documents, he told us exactly what we expected. This case had no legal standing. However, that didn't stop Lily's parents from using it as a scare tactic, spreading rumors about suing us to intimidate their social circle. It was another desperate attempt to drag us back into their mess. A weak, frivolous lawsuit designed to waste our time and make us second-guess our decisions. The case wouldn't go anywhere, but we were done just reacting to their attacks. We gathered every piece of evidence, every text, every call, every attempt they had made to interfere with our wedding, and filed for a restraining order. Enough was enough. If they tried to contact us again, if they attempted any further manipulation, we wanted legal protection to shut it down immediately. While we waited for the paperwork to process, her parents had another meltdown. This time in public, they posted a long dramatic rant on Facebook, airing out every single grievance they had. They called Lily ungrateful, claimed I had stolen her from them, and made it clear that, in their eyes, their daughter was now dead to them. The post went on to blame me for ruining the family, accusing me of manipulation, deceit, and everything else they could think of. But instead of sympathy, their meltdown had the opposite effect. A relative who had been keeping tabs on the situation reached out with some surprising news. Her parents had spent thousands of dollars trying to sabotage our wedding. Between bribing family members, booking a competing event, and even their failed legal threats, they had thrown away a ridiculous amount of money. And now it was backfiring. People in their social and business circles were distancing themselves. Clients were pulling out of their business. They had always prided themselves on their reputation, but their obsession with controlling Lily had started to cost them in ways they hadn't anticipated. Then they did something that left no doubt about their intentions. An email arrived, this time not to Lily, but to me. Her parents were willing to forgive me. According to them, if I convinced Lily to reconcile with them, they would be willing to put everything behind us. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what they had done, just a demand, disguised as an offer. I forwarded the email to our lawyer without responding. That was the last direct contact we allowed them to have. After that, we made it clear to everyone in our circle. We did not want updates about them. No messages, no news, nothing. If they wanted to scream into the void, they could do it without us knowing. But they weren't done. Even as their reputation crumbled, even as more and more people turned away from them, they kept spreading the same tired lie, that I had isolated Lily, that I had manipulated her into cutting them off, that she was trapped in a situation she didn't even realize was toxic. But their credibility was shattered. The same family members who once defended them were now embarrassed to be associated with them. Then just when we thought it was finally over, we heard a rumor. They were planning something else. Something even more ridiculous. We didn't know what it was yet, but we knew one thing. Whatever they tried next, we would be ready. A few months after the wedding, just when we thought things had finally settled down, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. It was from Lily's parents. Inside, the letter was filled with desperate pleas. They begged her to reconsider, to come home and make things right. They claimed they only did what they did out of love, that they were just trying to test her devotion to me. They wrote that one day she would understand why they had acted the way they did, that she would see the truth in time. But it wasn't just an apology, it came with conditions. Buried beneath the flowery words and manipulative pleas was yet another bribe. They were willing to reinstate her inheritance, to welcome her back into the family, under one condition. She had to divorce me. Lily didn't hesitate. She ripped the letter in half and threw it away. The decision had been made a long time ago, and there was no going back. That was supposed to be the end of it. But then, the ultimate backfire happened. Months later, Daniel resurfaced, reaching out in what seemed like an attempt to clear his conscience. He claimed he hadn't realized the extent of the manipulation until it spiraled out of control. For months, he had disappeared, avoiding anything to do with the situation. But something changed. Maybe he had his own regrets. Maybe he had finally realized just how deep he had gotten into something truly terrible. Either way, he decided to speak out, publicly. He made a post exposing everything. He laid it all out, how Lily's parents had approached him, how they had paid him to manipulate their own daughter, how they had planned every step of his interactions with her. He even attached proof, messages, call logs, bank transfers. The reaction was immediate. People who had once respected Lily's parents turned on them instantly. Their entire social circle saw them for what they really were: manipulative, controlling, willing to go to disgusting lengths just to force their daughter into a relationship they approved of. Clients pulled out of their business. The connections they had spent decades building crumbled overnight. Lily's parents tried to fight back. They claimed Daniel was lying, that he was twisting the story to make himself look innocent. But at this point, no one believed them. Their history of manipulation, the failed lawsuit, the wedding sabotage, it all added up. Their credibility was gone. Then, as quickly as they had fought for control, they disappeared. They stopped reaching out. No more messages, no more letters, no more drama. It was like they had erased themselves from everything. The last thing we heard from a distant relative was that they had moved away, cut off from most of their family, completely isolated. Lily never looked back. A year later, we celebrated our first anniversary. No interference, no stress, just us, surrounded by people who actually supported us. The people who had tried to control our lives had ended up destroying their own, and we never heard from them again.